Welcome to today's podcast. My name is Pearl Gurr, and I will be your host. Today's guest is Steve Foran. Steve lives in Halifax and is the founder of Gratitude at Work. Steve recently spoke at WorkSafe NB's annual Health and Safety Conference. Welcome, Steve.
Hey, thanks, Pearlie. Pleasure to be here.
Steve, tell us about your background, which is, by the way, as an engineer, and what led you to your current goal, which is to make 1 billion happier people.
Yeah, thanks. I trained as an electrical engineer, worked in the power industry for 13 years and post-secondary for another 6 or 7. And then I had this life-altering moment, which was just a realization. It was nothing, there was no great big event, but it was just this gradual realization that my life was handed to me on a silver platter, Pearlie. And prior to that, I kind of thought I did it all on my own. You know, I was this self-made man, whatever you call it. And I just had this realization that, oh my goodness, look at everything I have in my life. And it kind of really hit home to me when our kids got their first part-time jobs. They're working in a local coffee shop, earning minimum wage, working 5, 6, 7 hours a week. And in 5 months, our oldest son's bank account was, his net worth was greater than half of the world's population. And I'm looking at him and I'm thinking, well, I'm thinking about him, but really I'm thinking about me. And that's really was the tipping point that made me realize my life was handed to me on a silver platter. And it just brought this enormous sense of gratitude. So I want to connect this to your question. It brought this enormous sense of gratitude into my head and my heart. And so I did some research on it. And in 2007, I started on this on a full-time basis. So I left my engineering career and started, I don't know what I called it back then, but today it's simply this whole process of teaching gratitude, because it's a game changer for our mindset. So anyhow, I'll kind of pause there. If you want me to tell you about my dream of 1 billion happier people, I can share how that started too.
Sure, why not?
Yeah. So, in 2007, I knew that gratitude was just a game. It made such a difference in my life. And, 10 years into it, so it was like 2018, I was at a conference. And so I'm developing my understanding of gratitude. You know, you work with this for 10 years, like anything in your field, you begin to realize how little you know about it, the more you know about something, right? So I'm at this conference, and the opening keynote speaker was a fellow by the name of Peter Diamandis. And as they're introducing him, I had heard of him, but as they're introducing him, he's got like a PhD in, I don't know, physics or astrophysics from Harvard. He's got an MD, medical from Harvard. He does this thing called the X Prize, where they give $10 million to teams to solve really big problems in the world. And the current X Prize at the time was, if you could develop a device to extract 2,000 liters of water from the atmosphere per day for less than 10 cents a liter, you build a device to do that, he'll write you a check for $10 million. Pearlie, I'm sitting in that audience after they introduce him. I'm thinking, I'm not even worthy to be in this room. Anyhow, after his presentation, someone asks him a question. They say, Peter, how do you decide what you're going to invest your time, your money, your energy into? Like, people must be coming at you all the time. And he says, I ask myself one question. Does it have the ability to impact 1 billion people? And I got goosebumps, because I asked myself, does gratitude have the ability to impact 1 billion people, Pearlie? And I believe it does. And so I said, my dream is 1 billion happier people.
So how are you going to go about to achieve that?
You like asking the hard questions.
Yeah.
Like when that was in 2018. I haven't would you believe that I don't know? I don't have that all figured out. All I know is it's going to take more than me. And so, building community, equipping people. I'm an engineer. I started measuring it. It's hard to measure though. I can figure out the direct impact of people that I connect with but I'm not doing any surveys, but what I don't know is, and I know there's folks who have just caught the idea and they're building and running and, spreading the message, building community and helping others embrace gratitude into their life. So if you have any ideas, I am definitely open to them. If you listening, if you got some ideas, I am open to them. Please reach out to me, because, this is a journey. Yeah. So anyhow, we're making good progress, but we got a long way to go still.
Now, I'm sure there are people that will be listening to our podcast and will say, okay, explain a little more. Okay, gratitude. What exactly do you mean by gratitude? I mean, yes, I know there's, just generally being aware and appreciative of all those things around us, but tell us a little more about how you see gratitude.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. I mean, gratitude is the thing that your parents, your grandparents, that they nurtured in you and in each of us as we grew up. And the interesting thing, and I think it's interesting, is because at work, studies show that we crave gratitude at work. We would work harder for a more grateful boss. Like we crave it there. Same studies reveal that work is the place that we're least likely to express gratitude for whatever reason it is. And it is part of the human condition. Because when somebody opens a door for you at a grocery store, at a mall or somewhere, if someone stops and holds a door, what do you do?
Why do you think that is, as far as not seeing gratitude at work as much as we might see it in other places? What are your thoughts? You've been in the area for quite a while. You've studied it and so on.
Yeah. There's an implicit contract at work. I do this, you pay me for it, right? That there's this implicit contract. And the researchers that did that, they didn't study the exact reason, because that was not the purpose of their research, but they inferred a couple things. And I think that is one of them. And especially in the Western culture, is that we have this contract. So if I'm paying you to do something, you should do it. And I say that language, that type of thinking, so it makes us less likely to do it. And if I'm feeling like, okay, I get paid for this, and that can get in the way of it. Now, all we need to do is just be aware of it, because gratitude is about acknowledging people, contributions, the things that we've received that others have played a part in, right? Because when I saw my life handed to me on a silver platter, I saw my life as a gift. What I encourage folks to do, and not by saying, Pearlie, you should be grateful, but I want to invite you into thinking, what if you saw everything in your life as a gift? Your work, if you could do that, this whole idea of gratitude, it's easier to come to you. If you can't see your whole life as a gift, I want to invite you to figure out what part of your life can you see as a gift and work there. Because the reason, because I think this is an important question, is, well, why would you even do this? Like, why would you want to have gratitude and I think it's a leadership skill. Why would you want to do it? It is, there's a model for human flourishing that Martin Seligman has developed. And there's 24 positive character strengths as part of this model for flourishing, for thriving, and things like courage, love of learning, leadership, things like that. And 24, that's a lot of things. I can't remember 3 things when I go to the grocery store, right? So give me one. So one of Seligman's colleagues does some research and asks the question, what if you can only work on one of these? And what bubbled to the top was gratitude. Right? So gratitude is a predictor of living a thriving life. And when you're in this place of thriving, and I'm just saying you're above the line, you're in a positive emotional state. So number one, it feels good. And number two, it enables you and I to tap into the executive function in our brain. This is critical thinking, decision-making, creativity. And you think, let's bring it right to safety. When you're in the midst of, I'll just say chaos or whatever the case is, this is when we need our critical thinking. Prior to this podcast, as we were just having the conversation, right now as we record this, outside of my community, there's a wildfire going, and the folks that are there, that are fighting these fires, what type of mindset do we want folks to have? What if you're in that team, what do you want you want people to be able to critically think, make decisions, be creative, and be in this positive, thriving mindset, even though it can seem like the world is falling apart around you.
Now, I was on your website yesterday, and it talked about the work that you've done. And I guess to help our listeners understand as well, when you go into an organization, and there's a number of organizations listed that you've worked with over the last while, tell us about one of the organizations that maybe came to you and what they would have said to you, and then what you would have done with them to help them be more appreciative of gratitude and what that could do to help them.
Yeah. I'm thinking of one client who said, look, we need to reduce turnover. We need to be, if we want to deliver for our clients the way we really believe we need to make this place a magnet where people want to come to work. And this was a client of mine who worked in another organization. She changed and she said, we need this here. And so I use a process. I call it the peak positivity process, simple 3-step process. We equip the top team, whoever the formal leaders are in the organization. We equip the people, everyone in the organization. And 3, then we make it genuine. And so when I say equip, we just it might sound crazy when I say, we teach people gratitude or how to be grateful.
How do you do that, by the way?
Yeah, it is not by telling people they should be grateful. I'm a father, and when our kids were growing up and they were at the dinner table and, I don't like peas. You should be grateful you even have food on the table. There's people. That didn't work, right? So you can't do that. I share my own story and try to come at it from a little different angle that people don't suspect. And the number one comment I get is, this was eye-opening. And we help, just me sharing my own story, engage people, get some, activities going where people are getting to really dig into it themselves, because, any adult learning principle is that you give someone an idea, let them make sense of it, right? So that's how we do it. So we equip the top team, then do the same thing with the staff, equip the staff with it. And because gratitude is, it's simple, it's not easy, but then it's like, I just really take a guide role and coaching role and supporting them. How do you make this genuine in your organization? One of the first things they did, they said, we're going to set up gratitude buddies. We're going to pair up two people. You're going to have a gratitude buddy. And once a day for the next 30 days, you're going to text one thing you're grateful for to the other person. Just something. And they deliberately put people together who didn't know each other well. After 30 days, some of those things, they continued, because they really got to know each other and support each other. And I've been working with this leadership team, continuing to work with the leadership team over the last 5 years, slowed down a little bit through COVID. We were able to do a couple events. And last week I was meeting with them, and we're just taking very specific areas that are important in their business and bringing them together to put a lens of gratitude. How do you make sense of this when we introduce gratitude to this? And really equipping that leadership team so that they can continue to roll it out within their organization and support their staff.
Now, you were at a health and safety conference here, I guess, about 3 weeks ago now.
Yeah.
A lot of talk, obviously, at any health and safety conference these days about developing a culture. If you were to go into an organization that's trying to develop a better health and safety culture, what kinds of comments or advice would you provide to them to help them do that?
Yeah. Thanks for that. It's gratitude connects, because my tool is gratitude. That's the tool that I have. And gratitude connects to mindset. So it's, if you think of it as a tool to help us be in a positive, constructive, solution-oriented, where we're able to tap into the best part of our thinking. And that, so how do we do that? I want to say the same peak positivity process. Let's equip the top team. Let's equip the people. And then how do you make it genuine? Because really what it is I want to show you how gratitude is a tool to help you in whatever circumstance you're in to make better decisions. And, anytime I've been involved, when I was working at the power utility, I know the importance of making smart decisions, effective decisions, well thought out decisions because of the consequences of them. And so gratitude helps put us in that mind frame. And so I believe that's the approach. And then the third piece of it is, how do you make it genuine? Well, maybe what you do is, I'm going to sit with you and say, okay, how do we do this? Maybe when we do a tailboard talk, is that we're going to go around and we're going to share one thing we're grateful for as part of our tailboard discussion before we even start this job, right? So what is it that's going to work in your organization, and how do you connect that gratitude and mindset to behave, like the behavior of being safe that's driven from our mindset?
How do you deal with worker skepticism when they hear you talk about gratitude and sincere gratitude?
Yeah, it is the same way that leaders need to deal with any other skepticism, is that, number one, we don't let what anyone else says change our position, right? Like I believe as leaders, if we are going to influence, we need to expect and welcome skepticism. Number two is genuinely care for the human being who's being skeptical, right? If I genuinely have to care for that person, even if they're making my life miserable, I have to genuinely care for them. And that's hard. And then third, I need to continue to show up. I need to continue doing what I'm doing and encouraging others. And when we do that, we slowly convert people. We don't convert everyone, the skeptical, right? But we slowly, and we influence others, and we get people thinking. And that, because you've seen people change through your career, right? It's someone and we bring them along. So we need to be persistent. And that is a challenge. I know that.
Now, you've also written a book, Surviving to Thriving, the 10 Laws of Grateful Leadership. What could you share with us from that book?
I think the biggest thing that from the book that I think would be helpful for you is develop a habitual ritual. So this is a daily practice around gratitude. Develop a gratitude practice. And so the whole book really leads to it. But that daily practice of make a list of what you're grateful for. And there's some other things, but that daily practice of making a list of what you're grateful for connects back to having the thriving mindset, because we're teaching our brain how to make sense of the world, and that's going to help us lead a happier life, create a better culture in our organization where people are more curious. People are more just seeing things as learning opportunities. And so build a habitual ritual and make a list of what you're grateful for every single day. And you know what? My dad, who you would expect would kind of be all over this, when he read the book, he said, I'm going to start making a gratitude list every day. So I've kind of I made a long answer to my dad's answer when he summarized the book in that way.
Now, a question of I guess a very wide nature I'd like to ask.
Yeah.
If we go on the internet and we go through news sites, we go through social media sites, we see so much negativity. And, people I know keep asking the question is, how do we try to stay positive when we seem to be living in a world with so much negativity? I guess the key thing people want to take away is how can we change that as well? Not only how can we stay positive, but how can we change this over time?
Yeah, that is a very powerful critical thinking question, because it's a reality. Because as humans, we are actually hardwired to pay attention to the negative. It's our survival mechanism. And and the thing is, when we get drawn into that, it takes us down into a negative emotional state, and it effectively shuts off that executive function of our brain, that thing that causes, to think critically, to do all these things. So it is absolutely critical to do that. So building your gratitude practice is known to help you do this. And if you introduce a second, like making a list of what you're grateful for, that's that first one I talked about. If you introduce a second gratitude practice, it's going to help you deal with that negativity that's around you all the time. And the second practice is consume other people's gratitudes. Get involved in some sort of community. Like, don't just because when I am all stuck in myself, it's really hard for me to get out. So when I see or read or listen to what other people are grateful for, it reminds me of things. And I'll give you an example of it. Before we started this podcast, remember we were talking, Mark asked, Steve, how you doing and what's going on? How is with the wildfires and stuff? And I said, yeah, it's really, it's tragic. And what did Mark say? He said, where's the gratitude here? Right. And I related the story about all the first responders and how it moved me and how touching it was. There's an example of somebody else. And I don't know if I was necessarily going to that negative place, but when someone else is there, it raises us. So be aware of this natural tendency for us to go to the negative and build a community around you. And then very practically, avoid the social media sites and don't watch the news. Those are the other things I do.
Just to finish off our podcast, Steve, if you go to your website,
yes,
you provide folks with the opportunity to sign up to get a gratitude message.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
So if you go to our daily gratitudes page, you can get a reminder from me each weekday morning. Here are my 3 gratitudes. So that can be the way that you consume gratitudes. And I have a different guest every week. So you get to read their gratitudes. And you can use it as a reminder, right? Because this is simple, but it's not easy, right? So you can use it as a reminder for you to make your own gratitude list. And if you go to our resources page, we've got I call it the Gratitude at Work Playbook. And we've distilled 16, 17 years of working with clients. We give everything away. It's the philosophy and the top 15 best practices our organizations are using. It's on our website for free. You don't even have to give me an email to read it. If you want to download it, I do ask for an email, but go to the resources page and you will get ideas that you can use to implement to drive culture in your organization as well.
Well, Steve, thank you very much for joining us on the podcast. Very interesting. We actually featured this podcast because of one of the folks that heard you at the conference, and were very impressed with us. And for that, thank you very much. And again, for folks that are listening to our podcast, we'd love to hear from you. We'd like to hear your feedback. Any ideas you have, such as Steve, for a future podcast, pop us off an email at perley@ssnb.ca. Thank you very much again, Steve. Stay safe and with all the fires around you, and take care.
Thanks, Perley.